Okay. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I call out of recess Lee County Zoning Board of Appeals hearing on petition 20-P-1558. South Dixon Solar LLC's request for a special use permit to construct a solar energy system in South Dixon Township here in Lee County. I assume everyone's got on the continuing meeting now, but wanting to make sure that everyone that wants to participate can. In case you're listening to this on YouTube and can't figure out how to get on Zoom, the continuing meeting, as is every night, has an ID number of 915-3923-9154, and the password is 209840. If you want to just listen and view on YouTube but not participate, you go to www.youtube.com. YouTube is Y-O-U-T-U-B-E, by the way. In the search bar, type in Lee County Ill Zoning Board of Appeals. No need to worry about upper or lowercase letters. Then from the drop-down menu, find the session date you want to listen to, assuming that's tonight. That would be December 9th. Select the date you want, press on it, and voila, you should be able to see and hear us. As far as attendance here at the courthouse goes this evening, I am looking at honorable members of the ZBA, Chairman Forster, Vice Chair Burrow, Mr. Bothey, Mr. Hughes, Mr. Meyer, Mr. Berry, attorney for the petitioners here with one of his company reps, wandering in and out, but now out as an IT, a very skilled IT tech from Lee County. Our IT in courtroom skill is provided by Alice. She's present. Our wonderful court reporter Kelly is present. Himself is present, and that adds up to 10 people. Ms. Duffy is present, but not in the courtroom. Your newly elected state's attorney, Mr. Boonstra, is also present, but not physically in the courtroom. And I'm told we have 3 in attendance in the rear former jury deliberation room and no one downstairs in the first floor lobby. So we have 10 people in one meeting room complying with the governor's tier 3, phase 3, whichever it is, mandate. At this point, as with other spaces in the building, no matter where you are, I ask you to turn your cell phones off or at least on silent. Housekeeping before I forget. Gentlemen of the ZBA and those of you in the courtroom, I'm going to go through some dates, just indicate yes or no. And I hope we'll be able to complete the process by the next dates I give. I think, well, Wednesday, December 30th, Mr. Forster. Yeah, Wednesday, December 30th. Mr. Burrow? Yes. Mr. Bothey?
Yes.
Mr. Hughes?
Yes.
Meyer?
Yes.
Ms. Duffy, can you hear me? Ms. Henkel? Mr. Boonstra? Kelly? Zach, as far as you know? Good? Monday, January 4th. That's skipping about 5 days. Mr. Forster?
Yes.
Mr. Burrow? Yes. Bothey?
Yes.
Hughes?
Yes.
Meyer?
No.
Duffy? Did she say unwilling or I'm willing?
She said, God willing.
God willing. Oh, perfect. Alice? Mr. Boonstra? Mr. Berry?
Are we on January 4th?
Yes, sir.
I think so.
Did I skip you on the 30th?
You did.
Darn, sorry.
That's we're supposed to be out of town, but I think those plans are probably going to have to be canceled. So,
Okay.
and it's also my twin's birthday, but I can probably make it if necessary.
Which one are we talking about?
The 30th, and then I'm not sure if we'll be back by the 4th, but I can go ahead and put me down as a yes, and I'll let you know if there are any problems.
For both of them?
Yes.
And Callie, the 4th I'm talking about. All right, the next day, the 5th, Mr. Forster.
Yes.
Mr. Burrow. Yes, sir. Mr. Bothy. Mr. Hughes.
Yes.
Meyer.
No.
Mr. Duffy. Ellis. Charlie Brunstra. Mr. Berry.
Yes.
Kelly. Okay. Last one I'm going to try. Monday, the 11th. Mr. Forster.
Yes.
Burrow. Mr. Bothy. Mr. Hughes.
No.
Mr. Meyer.
No.
Okay, we'll skip the 11th and leave it at that. Okay. Those, again, I emphasize, are just available dates. We'll just have to see, and we'll try and work your schedule as well, Mr. Berry.
Thank you.
I just
And,
want to get a feel for where we are.
and those are in addition to the other available dates that we've
Yes.
talked about before.
Yes, I just wanted, before I forgot, I could very well leave tomorrow night without remembering, so. Okay. With no further ado, I think the ball is still in your court, Mr. Berry, and you may proceed.
Tomorrow night's the last one until the 30th then?
No,
Oh, what else did you have then?
15th and the 21st. No, first. Right, but don't forget, we have a different one on the 16th. But that one's at 7, yeah. See this color-coded sheet I've got? That's what I need to keep track of it, so.
Text that to him.
Yeah. So I think tonight I'm going to recess until the 15th. No. Tonight till tomorrow night, and then tomorrow night till the 15th. But a brand new one starts on the night after the 15th, the 16th. Then we'll probably go back to this one on the 21st. And then the Yuletide is upon us, and I didn't want a revolutions. You want to make that call? Go right ahead. Okay. Those are available dates, but tomorrow night's not tomorrow's a certainty. Okay, Mr. Berry, you may.
Thank you. I'd like to call to the witness stand Mr. Patrick Smith.
Okay, we'll zoom you bigger here, Mr. Smith.
Thanks. Can you hear me all right?
Yep,
Great.
there you are. Now your head's bigger than it really is.
I don't know.
Want to raise your right hand for me? You solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Thank you. You may inquire, Counselor.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Smith. Could you please state your name for the record?
Patrick Smith.
Could you tell us a little bit about your background, please?
Sure. I'm a civil engineer. My degree is in civil engineering with an emphasis on structural engineering. I am a licensed professional engineer in 3 different states, and I specialize in energy and energy infrastructure project development.
And are you employed?
I work for Duke Energy Renewables as a solar development engineer.
All right. Can you describe what you do as a solar development engineer, please?
I do civil design related elements to solar projects. So, site selection, site optimization, equipment selection, geotech, really all internal engineering elements for Duke, interconnection analysis, things like that.
Okay, great. Let's talk about South Dixon Solar. What's your role with the applicant?
I'm the lead engineer on that project.
And so I think you mentioned this, but you have experience developing other solar energy projects?
Yeah, yes, I am the lead engineer on about 3.5 gigawatts worth of solar that's 16 active projects across 5 different states, including one project that could be up to 1 gigawatt.
Okay, and can you convert gigawatts to megawatts for
Oh,
everybody in
sorry,
the room, please?
1,000 megawatts.
Thank you. I take it you're familiar with the South Dixon Solar Project then?
I am.
Could you please describe the work you performed in connection with the South Dixon Solar Project?
Yep, everything I stated before. So I helped develop and optimize the site. I helped select the current spec equipment. I looked at the geotechnical analysis, the interconnection analysis, pretty much everything engineering related to the project.
Thank you. Now, I believe you have some slides for show and tell tonight.
I do.
I think maybe at this time it would be a good idea to put the slides up. And I think there are only 4 or 5 of them, Judge.
And I've marked your hard copies, petitioners number 6.
Thank you.
Can you see
Uh-oh.
them? I can't see any slides right now.
Patrick, just a minute, please. First of all, I hope you got enough broadband where you are because you were cutting in and out.
I should.
There you go. That was better. Whatever you did before, you were sounded like a Donald Duck cartoon. Just a minute, Patrick. We're getting the exhibit up on the screen sharing.
No problem.
Zachary, a little help, please. Screen sharing issue. Oh, there it is. Just popped up. Okay, Patrick, just a minute. We're going to check and make sure it's on a remote screen, Mr. Smith. And
Sure.
it is, so we're okay. I forgot the question pending, so if you want to re-ask. If there was
We're
one.
just introducing the slides at this point.
So if you want to, if you want
Okay.
to go to slide number 2.
All right, Mr. Smith, let's talk about the solar panels that will be used for the South Dixon Solar Project. First, could you please describe the solar panels and explain how they will work?
Yeah, so I've brought along a couple of pictures here that shows kind of a representative solar site, what they're going to look like, and it'll kind of assist as I talk through this. This first slide here just shows the layout of a site and what we mean by grassland prairie, kind of what a typical site will look like. And this is the Duke Energy project. So this is what the typical site would look like as far as the covering on the ground. And if you go to the next slide, you'll see bifacial and monofacial panels. And if you look at those, the first thing you notice is that they look really similar. So they are really similar. The only difference between a bifacial
Rats.
and a monofacial
Gotta,
panel, that the monofacial panel
Mr.
has
Smith?
a white back sheet on it, and a bifacial has a clear glass back on it. This is because,
Mr. Smith,
yes,
you were cutting in and out again. We're having a technical problem. We missed about the last 30 seconds.
You were describing the difference between a bifacial and a monofacial panel.
Okay. Am I clear now again?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry about that. So the difference between a monofacial and a bifacial panel is they're very similar. The only difference between them is that a monofacial panel has a white back sheet, a cheaper plastic white back sheet, and a bifacial panel has a glass transparent back sheet. And the reason there's a difference is because in the past, the panel was not efficient enough to take advantage of the rear side energy gain. Today's panels are so efficient that it's worth it to put a little bit more price added with a glass backsheet and collect the rear side irradiance. So that's the difference between a monofacial and a bifacial panel. And then the third slide, if you go to the next slide.
Patrick, we missed about the last 10 seconds of that.
You said the last word we heard was the third.
Did you lose me again?
Yep.
If you go to the third slide, or the last slide, these are representative pictures of what we mean when we say tracker and inverter pad. That's a tracker at a 60-degree angle, so it's highest angle, and that would be tracking the sun east to
Got it?
west. And then that's pad, outdated, a couple years outdated. So the most current ones are a little bit more compact, but that's typically what they look like on piles like that.
Okay, thank you. Can we go back to page 3 of the slides? I see a lot of green in the bottom slide in particular. Can you describe what we're seeing underneath the panels?
Yeah, that's just the panels are.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
You're cutting in and out again. Can you? I don't know enough. I mean, I know when I do Zoom mediations or arbitrations, when it's cutting in and out, usually somebody doesn't have enough broadband. We're gonna be here all night with you. Do you know any way to track down if there's an issue?
Yeah, I can. It could be honestly the work computer I'm using. I can try a different laptop, and that might assist. It'll take me 2-3 minutes to try to get another laptop. Is that all right?
And can you maybe try not using your headset?
I can try to disconnect my headset right now and see if that works, but it might not be the internet there.
Well, give it a try. Let's give it a try.
Okay, I'll be right back.
Off the record, headsets buzzing.
Charlotte.
Cell phone.
So the Zoom has a call in.
Off the record, we're just.
Great.
Okay, you can do either one.
I prefer that. I usually do that anyway.
We'll call him and suggest that.
On the other hand, the public gets to see him. Or does he stay on video? Oh. Okay.
Seems like these things always worked better on TV, right?
Yeah. Flawlessly in the ads.
You know, movies from the 70s and 80s, the futuristic movies, they never showed the glitches, did they? When they were predicting the future.
You want to try switching laptops or
Sure.
short, very short.
Oh, come on. You aren't to that age.
I was gonna say, you aren't even close.
Yeah, but I mean, when I first heard it, everybody,
Have you been on a college campus yet? You see the kids walk around, you're like, this high school? What is going on?
Yeah.
Patrick. Okay. You ready to be let in? Should be in there. Give it a try.
Okay, let's try this again. Can you all hear me better? The same?
Now we can hear you as well as we could at the beginning. We'll just have to see. Because the first 2 or 3 minutes were fine, then you wandered in and out. But let's give it a try.
Where did I leave you? What question was asked?
I'll take over. So we're on page 3 of the slideshow. It shows bifacial and monofacial panels. And my question was and is, I see a lot of green in the photograph, in particular in the bottom photograph. Can you describe what we're seeing there?
Yes, that's what a typical solar site would look like. That's, the local species there that we planted. So that's what a typical site would look like. We would plan to grow everywhere around the panels. So that's what you're seeing.
So as far as I can see in the bottom photograph, the grass and other species are growing underneath the panels around the poles that the panels are being supported by. Is that correct?
Yes, our intent would be to plant the whole site.
And will the South Dixon solar panel arrays look something similar to this depicted in the photograph on page 3 of your presentation?
They'll be most likely or bifacial and actually a little bit further spread out than that.
Okay, thank you. Do you know what the panels, strike that. Can you describe the size of the panels that would be deployed on the South Dixon solar project?
Panels are typically 2 meters by 1 meter, so 6-ish by 3-ish feet and about 65 pounds.
Okay, thank you. And do you know at this time whether there's a plan to clean the project panels at all?
Yeah, we don't schedule any cleaning, any washing. Typically, there's enough rain that keeps the panels clean enough to function efficiently. At most, we would do it once a year, but we wouldn't schedule or plan anything like that. We don't anticipate a frequent need.
Thank you. Mr. Smith, can you tell us how many acres that the project infrastructure, including the solar panels and the inverters, et cetera, will occupy?
Well, the project area is around 3,800 acres, but that number is a little bit misleading. We use a number in solar development called the ground coverage ratio, the GCR, and that's the ratio of paneled area to essentially just grass prairie land. And on this project, it's going to be close to a third. So only a third of the site will actually be covered in panels. The rest of it will just be grass prairie land. And that has a couple of benefits. The first benefit is that we don't shade ourselves early in the day and late at night. The panels don't shade one another. The second, it allows us to access everywhere for maintenance. It allows us to mow and kill weeds. And another thing it does is it allows us to most have 2/3 of this site is just going to be grass prairie land. So it'll reduce erosion and runoff, and it's mostly just a grass prairie land.
Mr. Smith, will the panels that'll be deployed for the South Dixon Solar Project generate heat?
They might generate a very small amount of heat directly above the panel, but it would just be directly above the panel. It would be a very small amount and localized to right over the panel. So it wouldn't extend beyond the array, and it wouldn't extend beyond the fence.
Do you know if you know, will the amount of heat generated by the panels affect the weather in the area of the project?
No, it is not a material amount. Additionally, that effect would go away if the panels weren't generating heat. So at night, it would go away. If it was cloud cover, it would go away. When the panels aren't working, it returns to normal.
Mr. Smith, have you examined wind patterns around the project site?
Not yet, but as part of the final engineering, we will do a full structural analysis, which includes analyzing local wind loading.
And can you describe to us what wind loading means?
The wind forces subjected to the panels, according to the local building codes and federal electrical code.
So the panels will be constructed to withstand a certain level of wind and a certain amount of wind speed, correct?
That's correct.
Mr. Smith, will the panels that will be deployed at the South Dixon Solar Project contain hazardous materials?
Yes, they can contain a trace amount of lead depending on the soldering used by the manufacturers. Any amount of lead will be less than the EPA regulated limit. I should say that all electrical equipment that has soldering in it could contain a trace amount of lead. So your cell phone, your laptop, your TV, all of those could contain that same trace amount depending on the soldering used.
And if the panel contains lead, or if the soldering material used on the panel contains lead, will that be on the outside of the panel?
No, it's completely encapsulated in 2 layers of this tempered glass that's on the panel. So completely encapsulated inside.
And is the inside of the solar panel sealed then with that glass?
Yes, it's completely encapsulated, and this is tempered glass. So even if it breaks, it wouldn't shed small debris. It wouldn't shed any glass or anything like that. It would stay mostly in one piece.
Okay, can you tell us what other materials the panels will be comprised of?
Well, the panel is mostly glass and aluminum, and then silicon, copper wiring, and silver. That's most of the panel.
Okay, anything else?
No, that's the panel.
Well, will the panels contain cadmium?
No, cadmium is a material found in thin film panels, which are not spec'd for this site.
All right, let's talk about how the solar panels and the project will generate electricity. Could you explain how that works in a general way?
Yeah, sure. The sun strikes the collector face, which generates low voltage DC current. That current is transported to the inverters via wires, cabling. That inverter converts it to alternating current and steps up the voltage. Medium voltage cables transport it to the main power transformer, which steps the voltage up to the transmission voltage, which in our case is 345 kV, and injects it onto the transmission grid.
And that's the point at which the project delivers the electricity into the electric grid, correct?
That's correct.
It's essentially the point at which the project is plugged into the grid, right?
That's right.
Will the electricity generated by the South Dixon Solar Project be stored?
No, we don't have any batteries planned for the site, so it will go directly from generation to the transmission line.
Okay, Mr. Smith, what happens if a panel breaks?
We would replace it immediately.
Okay, and I think earlier you said something about how if the glass is damaged, it won't shatter. Can you tell us more about that again? What would happen if something heavy landed on the
Sure.
one of the panels?
Even in the case of an extreme break, it wouldn't lose any material. It's tempered glass, which is very strong and maintains its shape. So even in the event of a break, you wouldn't have anything leach out of the panel.
Okay, that's my next question. Do you anticipate that the panels that will be deployed for the South Dixon solar project will leak?
No. No, for all the reasons I stated before, the tempered glass is very strong. It will not shatter. It won't break. It won't shed debris in any case, even in a break.
Thank you. Will the South Dixon solar project generate electromagnetic fields, Mr. Smith?
Yes, everything that has electricity generates electromagnetic fields, but it won't be at a dangerous level. So similar to a laptop, TV, cell phone, all of these things generate electromagnetic fields. We have people work on these solar sites every day across the U.S. People put them on their rooftops. We put them on the tops of hospitals. The EMF level on PV systems is not dangerous.
So you're saying that the electromagnetic fields generated by the solar panels are at safe levels immediately next to the panels, correct?
Yes,
What about outside of the fence line?
they are also a safe level.
Speaking of fencing, what type of fencing is planned to be used for the project?
We would typically use chain link, but we would be willing to consider any commercially reasonable fencing that meets federal electrical code.
Okay. Are there any examples that you care to mention, or can you give us a couple examples of other types of fences that would
We've
be
heard woven wire could be used. We would be willing to consider that.
Okay. Does the design of the project contemplate that a fence would cross any floodplains?
No, we would not cross any floodplains or floodways with any fencing. I think there was some confusion earlier in the week with the site plan. There's a red dotted line on the site plan that is the project boundary that is not the fence line. The fence line is almost shrink wrapped to the panels. It's not shrink wrapped, but it's very close to the panels, and is a separate line on that site plan. So we won't be crossing any floodway or floodplain with a fence.
Okay, thank you. Next, I'd like to ask you a question or two about decommissioning. What vehicles and equipment will be used to deconstruct or decommission the South Dixon solar project?
We won't use anything oversized or overweight to decommission the plant. It's a typical equipment, construction equipment, nothing oversized or overweight. The only thing that is overweight is the main power transformers, and we talk about that in the road use agreement. But other than that, it's just typical equipment. Additionally, according to the AMA, any compaction that occurs, we are to decompact. So that's part of the agreement in the decommissioning plan and in the AMA.
And I think this might have been covered before, but are the pilings that on which the solar panels sit, are those are concrete? Is concrete used to put those in the ground?
No, all of the steel, all of the panels will be supported by steel piles.
And so how are those removed during the decommissioning project, or at least
A pile extractor, it's a small piece of equipment. We wouldn't use like a heavy crane or anything like that that you would associate with maybe a wind farm. We wouldn't use anything like that.
Did you say a pile extractor? Mm-hmm. You have to answer verbally.
Oh, yes.
And can you describe what a pile extractor looks like?
Just a track mounted vehicle, looks like a tractor would, and it just pulls the pile out. That's one option that we would use to pull the piles out. Just an example.
And is that the size of a small or a large tractor?
I would say a small one.
Okay. Will any of the components of the project be recycled or reused after it completes its useful life?
Yes, most of it will be recycled or reused. You know, the steel is the most of it, and the steel will definitely, that's easy to recycle and reuse. The panels are mostly glass and aluminum, and those have robust recycling industries around them, as well as the PV cells themselves. They have a developing recycling industry around them. It's developing all the time, and there's a lot of research being done into how to increase the recyclability of the PV cells. In fact, Duke Energy funds a lot of research into recyclability, and that research says that in the coming years, the PV recycling industry reuse is going to be robust. People, particularly by the time this project is decommissioned, we expect that there will be a very robust recycling and reuse industry.
Well, do you know what the closest recycling facility would be to the South Dixon Solar Project?
There's a PV recycling facility in Wisconsin.
Where in Wisconsin?
I think it's in Madison.
Mr. Smith, what is the projected lifespan of a solar panel?
Between 30 and 40 years.
Thank you. All right, let's talk a little bit about the ground that'll be used to support the project infrastructure. If topsoil is removed, will it be returned to the parcel that it came from, or will it be placed on another landowner's parcel?
No, according to the AMA, we're going to take best practices to keep the topsoil exactly where it is. In the event that any is removed, it'll be stockpiled by itself away from subsoils. We won't mix it with subsoils, and we'll put it back where we found it. And that's required with the AMA.
Do you know what the current use is for the parcels that will be used to host the infrastructure for the South Dixon Solar Project?
It's row crop.
If the project is built, will soil erosion issues increase or decrease? Will they become greater, or will the erosion issues improve?
Erosion issues will improve. We expect erosion to decrease and runoff to decrease because we're transforming it to grass prairie land, which has which is better for erosion. So we expect it to get better.
And we saw a depiction of that on slide 3 of your presentation, correct?
That's correct.
Mr. Smith, is the project removing any trees at this time?
No, we have not. We don't know of any trees being removed. We haven't commissioned any trees being removed. We haven't approved of any trees being removed.
So no trees have been removed recently along 3 Mile Branch?
We are not associated with any tree removal by 3 Mile Branch.
Thank you. Mr. Smith, do solar projects increase the frequency of lightning strikes?
No, there are no studies that say they increase the frequency of lightning strikes. In fact, if the sun isn't shining, the panels aren't on or generating at all. So if there's a storm, the panels wouldn't be generating. There'd be too much cloud cover.
Okay. Mr. Smith, is there currently a plan to drill any water wells for the project?
We have no plans right now to drill any water wells.
Judge Slavin, that's all I have for the witness at this time.
Very good. Mr. Boonstra, questions of this witness? Thank you. How about you, Ms. Duffy?
Mr. Smith, do you know approximately how many transformers are going to be used on this project?
The final equipment hasn't been spec'd yet, and they differ in size. So we don't have a final number right now.
And will concrete be under the transformers?
There's a potential. Typically, we would just put them on piles. As far as the ones that are located throughout the site, we would just put them on piles, just like we put the panels on. But that final design hasn't been done yet.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, ZBA, Mr. Forster,
No questions.
about you, Mr. Burrow?
Yes, Mr. Smith, we've had some of these questions your attorney here has brought up earlier, and one of them that you possibly know the answer, the heat above the panel that you mentioned, is that something just in a few degrees, or what would you expect that to be for heat above the panels?
Yeah, no more than a couple of degrees. Yeah, so yeah, just very small amount.
Okay. And you mentioned a wind analysis and a wind loading. When is that study going to be done, or is that slated to be done soon?
It would be done as part of the final engineering package, so probably not closer to construction. So sometime in 2021.
Okay. I think that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Thanks.
Bothe. Mr. Hughes,
No questions.
Mr. Meyer.
Mr. Smith, what materials, if any, would require placarding when they're being delivered, to the site by truck?
I don't know the answer to that question.
Okay. What kind of steel are the pilings made of?
Yeah, can you be more specific?
Are they galvanized steel? Or are they Core-10 steel, or just mild steel?
Typically, they're galvanized steel.
And the same for the racking materials, they'd probably be galvanized steel also.
I don't know the answer to that question. I believe so, but I don't know for certain.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, interested parties. Minimize Mr. Smith. And, oh, there they are. All right. Jennifer Lawson. Can you hear me first of all, Jennifer?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yep, sure can. All right, and remind us where you live in relation to the project.
Within the project boundaries.
And questions for Mr. Smith.
Yes. What is the estimated project life for this solar field?
I think it's somewhere between 30 and 40 years.
You had mentioned that any soil that is moved would be set aside. How can you guarantee it's going to be there 32 years later?
I'll clarify that. Oh, excuse me. You can finish your question.
No, 35. I was taking an average of 30 to 40 years.
Sure. That would be during the construction phase. If we needed to dig anything, we would separate the topsoil before we put it back down. So the intent is that the site would remain the same, but during construction, if we segregated any topsoil, it would go back into the same place. So
Okay,
nothing long term.
Thank you. That was my misunderstanding. Is there an estimated seasonal output for the project?
Yes, but I don't know it off the top of my head.
Okay. Is it in a report?
I don't know.
Okay. What is the offset from a water or a floodplain for the solar?
I don't know.
Okay. Those are the only questions I have.
Thank you.
Mhm.
About Jamie. I think your last name's Lawson as well.
That's correct. Can you hear me?
Sure can. And you live within the boundary of the project?
That's correct.
Okay, Go ahead.
I guess my first question would be, Patrick, is there going to be another representative from Duke speaking, or are we going to have an opportunity to ask another rep so we don't waste everybody's time asking you questions that you don't know, as Jennifer did?
I don't, no, he's, okay.
Can you hear me, guys?
Patrick Smith, are you there?
Muted.
Okay, there you go. I was muted by the host. So
You got it.
I believe I'm the last one answering questions, but I could be wrong.
I don't know if it's appropriate. Judge, would you know if someone else will be speaking, or does he get?
Well, I have no idea. I don't run the petitioners, but
Okay, all right, I'll ask my questions. How many of the 61 operating facilities for a total of 1,335 megawatts did Duke build?
Can you be more specific?
The initial paperwork we were given says that Duke Energy currently operating 61 for a total of 1,335 megawatts. My question would be, how many of those 61 facilities did Duke actually build?
I don't know.
Okay, it's going to be a long question session. Is it true that the only they had stated earlier that there's two 200 megawatt systems in Texas that's part of the 61
Yes.
operating facilities? And is it true that the only house affected by the one in St. Angelo, Texas, is the one that's on the ranch in which the project was built?
I don't know.
Okay. Is it true in Wingate, Texas, where the other 200 megawatt facility was built, the population is 231 people?
I don't know.
Okay. Did Duke Energy start both 200 megawatt solar farms in Texas, or were they purchased from 8-minute and recurrent energy up to a halfway through the project?
I don't know.
Okay. Is it true that Duke Energy is wanting to build a 500 megawatt, 3,838 acre solar farm in Lee County, but the most experience you have in building solar farms averages just 21.88 megawatts, or roughly 210 acres?
I don't think that's a fair characterization of Duke.
I'm just basing these numbers on the handout that we were given.
don't tell them things, just ask them questions.
Okay, I'm sorry. Why is Duke Energy proposing this project in this area?
I don't know.
Okay. Are you aware that the Lee County Generating Station, which is a peaker plant formerly owned by Duke Energy, only ran for 84 days in 2020 due to the extreme record heat, and which was 34 days higher than the average of 50 days a year that it normally runs? That's my question there.
No, I'm not familiar with that project.
Okay. Where will the electricity go that is provided for the project, that is generated by the project?
You can't pinpoint. There's no specific place that it's going to go. It's not known at this time. It just falls in line with the other electrons.
Okay. Referencing your closing statement of the special use permit, does it not say that it would provide pollution-free electricity to businesses and homes in Lee County and surrounding communities?
Yes, that's what your transmission grid is in the town. It's most likely going to be used you don't know where it's going to go, but it could be used locally for sure.
So how would you know that it's going to go to Lee County if you don't know where it's going to go?
You don't know where it's going to go, but the transmission will go to the substation, which will go to local distribution networks. It's more likely to be used locally than further away.
Okay, thank you. Has Duke Energy entered into a power purchase agreement?
No.
How will the project affect traffic with up to 450 workers during the 2-year period of construction and beyond?
The traffic on the roads will be increased during construction. We've addressed this with the road use agreement that we submitted as part of the special use permit. But beyond that, we anticipate traffic will go down. We'll only have 5 to 10 workers on site, and they'll be using an access road to get in and out of the operations and maintenance building. So you won't have as much heavy equipment driving around or as many people.
So you just said that traffic will go down. Are you referring to your traffic or traffic in general in the area?
Our traffic will go down. I would expect traffic in the area goes down as well, but I don't know the traffic study.
Why would you say that the traffic will go down in the area?
Well, 3,000 acres are now being used by 5 to 10 people.
Exactly. Okay. Thank you. Will the project change the character of the land?
I don't know.
You're not aware that if you put 10-foot solar panels and 6-foot fences and vegetation screens that it won't change the character of the farm ground, row crops?
That's not my area of expertise.
Okay. Will this project affect surrounding properties?
I don't know.
Besides the 8% increase in the total general revenue for Lee County per year, what other positives will this project provide for surrounding residents other than money?
I don't know.
Okay. With all of the I don't know, that's undecided at this time, and those studies have not been completed, answers that we have heard over the last 4 nights, is this hearing a little premature?
Objection, Your Honor, to the form of the question. It's
Sustained.
abusive.
Zoning board makes its decision, Mr. Lawson. Appreciate the question, but.
That's all I have. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. I'm looking for hands. Oh, I see Brad Apple. First of all, can you hear me, Brad?
Yes, I can.
And we can hear you. Remind us where you live in relation to the project, please.
Directly adjacent.
Okay. Questions for Mr. Smith?
Okay, my question is pertaining to the wind study that has not been completed yet. Do you have any kind of information on what the structures are rated for wind speed?
I don't know what the rating requirements of the area are, but will abide by local, federal, state codes. But off the top of my head, I don't know what those specific wind loadings are.
Okay, for myself, I live on the west side of the project, or excuse me, the east side of the project. So with prevailing west winds and the storms that come through, it seems odd to me that we have
You're telling him, Mr. Apple, you're telling him, Mr. Apple, you're telling him things. You can have your chance to testify or give us closing comment. Just the time for questions.
Okay. When will we have the information on wind speed and what they're rated for?
That would be taken care of as part of the final engineering package, as part of the structural engineering done. And as I said before, it'd be sometime in 2021, probably.
So would it be correct to say that we would not have this information until after this is approved?
That would be
I'm going to object to the form of the question because just to make sure everybody, to be clear, Your Honor, this is a special use permit application. And if it is approved, the project still is required to get additional approvals later on before it obtains a building permit to actually construct the facility.
Obviously, I understand that whether Mr. Apple does or not, but the objection is sustained because he doesn't know which approval you mean.
I'm referring to being approved by the zoning board.
So want to re-ask your question? So,
Okay.
Mr. Smith.
Yeah, So we will not have the wind study completed prior to the zoning board approval or disapproval. Would that be correct?
Prior to this approval, that's correct.
Okay. Are the pilings and the structures that these are mounted on electrically grounded? Are you having ground cables and driven grounds installed?
Yes, they'll be grounded.
Okay. So the question on the lightning, you do not expect this to attract lightning with that amount of metal being grounded?
No, no.
I ask you why you don't expect that?
It won't be generating during a storm, and this is not generating static electricity, which is what causes lightning.
Okay, my question would be, if you have a large amount of metal that's directly grounded, I believe that would attract lightning. Would that be incorrect or a correct statement?
That is not consistent with the studies I'm aware of.
Okay. Okay, earlier in your presentation, you mentioned that this will be mainly prairie grass that would be planted here, but then you did refer to other than having to kill weeds. What kind of herbicides will you be using to kill weeds and how much?
I don't know what the herbicides we'll be using are, but there are specifications laid out in the AMA, and we'll be abiding by those specifications.
Okay. That's my last question.
Thank you. Further hands? Mr. Luz? First of all, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Hello, Patrick.
Hi.
And you live within 1.5 miles of a boundary of the project, is that correct?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Luz, go ahead and ask Mr. Smith questions.
Mr. Smith, we've talked about, are you familiar with the peaker plant Duke Energy owns in close proximity to this project?
I am not.
Do you have price estimates on the substation that you're looking to create for this project?
I do not.
Is that something that is generated before the building permit is done then?
I don't know. I typically, yes.
On a previous project we had in the county, there was cost estimates upwards of $56 million for the substation to be created. Would that be a general estimate of what a substation might cost for this project?
No, that's not within the ballpark of a solar substation.
What is the ballpark?
It's tough to say because it depends so much on size and location.
Okay. Regarding that type of infrastructure, would it be wise that we use current infrastructure that would already have been created that your company owns within close proximity of this project?
Can you be more specific?
Would the land around your peaker plant be a prime location for the placement of the solar panels, since there's already infrastructure there tied into the grid?
No, not necessarily. No.
That would not be of a benefit?
No, there may not be open bays. There may not be capacity that you would have to, you most likely would have to expand that. And depending on where it's located, the expansion of it, we've seen expansions of substations cost more than building a new substation. It's not fair to say that any existing substation is cheaper to tie into.
Okay, thank you. The the heat island effect that they're regarding solar, that is not an issue with this 5,000 plus acres we will have in this area of solar?
I'm going to object to the form of the question. He didn't define what a heat island effect is, number one. Number two, he said, referred to 5,000 acres of solar. This project, I think he testified earlier, is about 3,800 acres.
Well, listen, I'll help you out, Mr. Luz. Mr. Smith, are you familiar with the term heat island?
I am.
Go ahead, Mr. Luz.
So you are not concerned about the creation of a heat island with the close to 5,000 acres of solar panels that will be in this area,
Well,
including
the objection sustained within the area. Okay.
within the area, including Aldina Solar.
No, that heat island hypothesis, it won't affect any area outside of directly above the panels.
Are you able to provide studies that back up that this is just a hypothesis?
There are studies out there that study the heat island effect. Most of them are done in arid desert locations, so it's not a one-to-one comparison. Say one in Arizona where there's no cover crop isn't fair to compare to here in South Dixon and Dixon, and even in the ones that are in a place without cover crop and in a desert environment, there's a very minimal couple degree effect that doesn't extend beyond the bounds of the solar farm.
So in those studies in those areas, it's not a 5 to 10 degree difference?
No, I have not seen any studies that suggest a 5 to 10 degree difference.
Okay. There's no real study then on this size solar in our environment regarding a heat island effect then?
I don't know.
So this would be the experiment, essentially, is what I'm asking. Is that correct?
No, I don't think that's fair. There have been studies about heat islands generated by solar farms, and they typically find what I said, and the situations those studies were conducted in were more extreme than the situation here. So you would expect a lesser effect here.
Okay. If we move to a different topic here, the fence you all talked about earlier. Are you familiar with the proximity that the fence is to non-participating residents on this site?
Not in exact feet, but I have a general idea.
Are you familiar with different setbacks being afforded to different participants or non-participants within this site?
No.
Are you familiar with the Lee County ordinance changing the setback requirements for solar systems in Lee County?
Prior to our application, or post our application, yes.
And did you evaluate those new setbacks to your project?
I have not. That wouldn't be my role.
Would increasing the setbacks to non-participating residents have a dramatic impact on your project you have here?
It could, depending on the setback. It absolutely could.
Are you familiar with Duke potentially moving forward for tax abatement of this project?
I'm not aware of that. That's not my area of expertise.
Okay. You talked a lot about the panel makeup. Do you have a spec sheet on the panels you're using for this facility that you were speaking so eloquently to?
I think we submitted a spec sheet as part of the use permit.
So there is a specific panel that is going to be used then outlined?
It's a representative panel. It will be similar. It will be of similar quality, of similar manufacturer.
Is there any non-stick coatings applied to the surface of those panels?
There may be. I'm not aware of PFAS or Gen X being used on any of our solar panels.
What would be used in lieu of those?
I don't know.
But you're confident that Gen X is not used then on those panels?
I am confident that I don't know of any panels that use PFAS or Gen X chemicals.
Okay. I think that's all I've got. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Wendy's iPad. And Wendy, remind us of your last name, please.
Isley,
And where do you live in relation to the proposed project?
approximately 2 miles.
Okay, go ahead. Ask Mr. Smith questions you have.
Okay. The vegetation screening that you will be planting, will that be planted on a berm so it raises it up the ground to shade the fence and panels from the homeowners?
I don't know. I don't believe so.
Okay. All right, thank you. And is there evidence that a 6-foot fence with barbed wire is necessary around the project?
Fencing is
Someone damaging the panels?
fencing is dictated by the National Electric Code, and a typical fence is 6 foot of chain link with 1 foot of barbed wire. It's not the only. I don't believe it's the only fence. We would be willing to consider other types of fences if they're commercially reasonable and meet the standards set out in the Federal Electric Code.
Okay, I was just curious if there was like a history and that necessitated the need for the height of the fence with the barbed wire is all. Okay, thank you.
No problem.
That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see any more else. Am I? Okay. Back room, Mr. Boonstra. He's doorkeeper. Highly paid doorkeeper. Mr. Shepard, good evening. And you live where in relation to the project?
Adjacent to?
And Mr. Smith, can you hear him?
I can.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, are you aware of any other ongoing solar projects that surround non-participating residents on all 4 sides?
Can you be more specific?
Are you aware of any other projects are you involved with any other projects that the solar project surrounds the non-participating residents immediately adjacent or residing within the solar project on all 4 sides of their property?
Yes, I've seen that.
How often do you see that?
I couldn't guess, but I have seen that before.
Is it common practice for Duke Energy, once the solar project is up and running, to have any community outreach or involvement?
That's not my area of expertise, but I believe so.
Do you know if a non-participating resident can request additional landscape buffer?
I don't know.
Are your inverters and transformers air-cooled or oil-cooled?
The inverters and transformers haven't been spec'd yet. I can tell you that the inverters we currently spec are air-cooled. All transformers are air and oil-cooled. but any oil we use will be what's called FR3 oil, which is 100% vegetable oil. And if we don't use that, we'll have a secondary containment, but in all likelihood, we'll use the 100% vegetable oil.
Okay, we'll change to a different subject here. This is regarding the structure itself. Is the wind rating of your tracking structure greater than or less than the wind speed rating of an EF2 tornado?
I don't know the wind speed rating of an EF2 tornado off the top of my head. What I do know is we have operating plants on the east coast of the United States that are subjected to hurricane force winds every year, and they're rated to that. So they're strong.
So then are you suggesting that hurricane force winds and tornadic force winds are similar in rating?
No, I don't know the wind speed loads of a tornado.
Are the PV panels bolted to the tracking structure or clamped to the tracking structure?
I don't know. It depends on the module. It depends on the tracking system used. There are a couple of different factors.
So have you picked out a tracking system to be used on this project then?
We have not.
How many panels will be involved in this approximately? How many panels will be involved with this project?
Yep. Panels come in a lot of different wattages, so it's difficult to estimate how many panels are going to be on the site.
When will you know how many panels will be on site, approximately?
When the final design is done, when we've spec'd a panel, we can give you a more approximate number.
Okay. Now the next questions I'm going to refer to your application. Give me 1 second here to find it here. In Appendix P, Section 1.2.1, there's two figures there. It's Figure 2 and Figure 3. You stated earlier that you will not be using the frameless thin film panel, correct?
That is correct.
So Figure 3 is irrelevant to this project, correct?
I can't see Figure 3.
Is there any way he can, or?
I can pull it up on my computer.
Okay.
Great.
If you could describe for me what's in the figure, I might be able to explain it faster than I can get there on my
questions I
computer.
had regarding that Figure 3 were the ingredients used in there, specifically cadmium sulfide?
Won't be on our project.
Okay. So if you get there and you see Figure 2, would that be more of the composition of the panels that will be used then? What is called a crystalline silicon panel?
Yes, it will be a silicon crystalline panel.
Okay. I have one more question. On your presentation, page 3, the lower picture for the monofacial panel, what is the invasive weed species pictured there with the yellow flower?
I don't know.
Okay, that's all the questions I have.
Thank you. Anybody else in the back room? Good evening, Ms. Johansson. And remind us where you live in relation to the project.
I live within 1.5 miles of the boundary.
Great. Would you go ahead? Feel free to go ahead and ask Mr. Smith any questions.
How many site entrances to the project will there be?
I don't know that figure off the top of my head.
What is the efficiency of this solar system?
I don't know that number off the top of my head. Typically panels are 20% efficient or more.
What is the loss of efficiency per year?
I don't know.
Will the tree screening be established around the entire project site?
I don't believe so.
Will the tree screening be completely around all the residences involved, whether they are adjacent or embedded in the project?
I don't know.
Will any blasting occur during the construction?
No, not that I'm aware of.
These, I call them posts, I think you call them poles that you put into the ground that hold the panel. What is the size of this post?
It depends on the panel spec, you know, how big it is and things like that. You know, if W6x7, you know, they're not very big as far as steel piles go.
Would they be 3 inches in diameter, 4 inches in diameter?
6 inches in diameter, maybe. That's an approximation.
6
I don't know.
inches?
I don't know off the top of my head. That's a guess.
How far into the ground will these poles be inserted?
We haven't done a final geotech work, so we don't know how deep the panels will need to be driven. Piles.
Will
will need to be
these
driven.
poles have any anchoring construction in under the ground surface?
No, no. We don't intend to have any anchoring other than driving them into the earth.
So just the pole would be inserted into the ground?
That's correct.
How many miles of internal roads will there be on the project?
The roads have not been designed yet, so I don't know.
What would be the construction of these roads?
We like to use naturally compacted soil. To get to the substation, the utility will probably require a gravel road. So there might be one of those.
During decommissioning, these roads then would be removed?
Per the AMA, we will remove those roads, decompact where necessary.
Has any money been set aside to repair any township or county roads that might be damaged due to heavy traffic and excessive tonnage?
I don't know the answer to that. The only overweight shipment we'll have is a one-time shipment of the main power transformers, which we outline in our special use permit and in the road use agreement.
If any trees die around the landscape, would they be replaced?
I don't know.
Who would inform the company of any dead trees or bushes around the perimeter?
We'll have a contact number, I believe, that you could contact.
Will any equipment such as the electrical lines to the inverter and inverter to substation or other equipment be buried underground?
Yes, that's possible.
Would the soil be removed in order to do this?
Not necessarily. You could use cable pulling.
What is the average depth of the topsoil on this project?
I don't know the answer to that.
Since grass fires spread rapidly, what is the assurance that the residents adjacent to or in the project might be protected from a possible grass fire?
Yeah, we have a dedicated O&M team there that will be using preventative measures to keep that kind of thing from coming, but also will be, the equipment will be monitored 24/7. So we'll know, we would know that pretty quickly.
If erosions would start from the rain cascading off of a panel, would they be repaired?
We don't believe that erosion will increase from it cascading off a panel. It's not at its, even at its highest, it's not that far off the ground. And per the AMA, I believe we have to repair erosion.
During construction, do you work when the ground is soft?
No, I don't believe so.
How many years has Duke's largest solar system been in operation?
They get increasingly larger as time goes on and panels become more efficient and there's more of a need for renewable energy in the US. So our largest plant was built in 2020.
Is this plant in operation then?
Yes.
Who is responsible for mowing the ditches along the road around the site?
If it's within our project boundary, I believe that falls on our O&M team, but I don't know for certain.
If the panels are not producing electricity, like at night or cloudy, how will you supply your buyer through the transmission lines?
We won't.
So what will the buyer do for his customers?
It depends on the nature of the agreement.
How do you measure the electricity that you would produce from what other facilities would produce if you're all sharing the same transmission line?
Yep, the same way you would do it in your house, just a bigger meter, a lot bigger.
Will the barbed wire on the fence be straight up or slanted outward?
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Somebody else in the back room. There should be only one more person, if at all. Ms. Shippert, good evening. Remind us where you live in relation to the project.
Adjacent to. Then
Questions of
1.5
Mr. Smith.
miles. I'm sorry, can you repeat?
Sure. Questions of Mr. Smith.
Yes. Could you please repeat how much lead was in each panel?
Trace amounts. I couldn't even give you a number because it would vary depending on the soldering used by the panel manufacturer.
Okay. What are the materials that go into a solar cell?
A solar cell is made of silicon. That's what the cell is. The whole panel itself is mostly glass and aluminum, copper, silver, small amounts of semiconducting metals. That's the entire makeup.
And did you say that there is currently no recycling program for this specific cell?
No, in fact, there are recycling programs, and the recycling programs are growing rapidly. The closest recycling program is fairly close to here. I believe it's in Madison, Wisconsin, which is 2-hour drive north. So it's fairly close to one, and it will become more robust as time goes on. These are valuable metals, and the reuse market will be strong as well. That's what our research and that's the funding. That's what our research says.
Does Duke have a guarantee that these cells will be recycled?
Per the decommissioning plan, I believe, well, I guess no, I don't know. I assume we would want to. They're valuable.
Is it possible with the no guarantee that these cells could end up in a landfill?
I don't know if we have a guarantee. So I don't know.
Okay. Thank you. I had a couple more questions.
Sure.
Okay. Are you aware of the litigation that Duke has in regards to a pipeline project?
You'd have to be more specific.
Are you aware of the litigation that Duke has in the Carolinas with the pipeline project there?
I guess no. You'd have to be more specific. Maybe.
Okay. Let's go to something else. What fasteners would you use in this project?
Fasteners? Can you be more specific?
To fasten the panel to the bottom piece.
Yeah, that would be determined by the module and the racking companies. They would work together to have a fastener that works for their panel and the racking system we use. So I don't know.
Okay. In your experience, have those fasteners been rated for a certain wind, mile per hour?
Yes, the whole system will be rated for certain wind loads.
And that includes the fasteners themselves?
Yes, we don't want these panels to blow off any more than you do.
What is the lowest approximation you can make of how many panels would be on an acre?
Oh gosh, I'd have to do some math. I don't, off the top of my head, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
Can
The
you
lowest? Yeah, I don't know. Sorry.
Can you provide a range from low to high of how many panels could be on an acre?
I would need some time to think about it, to be honest. And I'd need to know a lot more information. So no.
Was any of that information submitted for this project, the approximation of the number of panels?
I don't know.
So we don't know if there's one panel on 3,800 acres or a million?
We don't know an exact amount, and I don't know if the other members of the Duke team have had to submit something that has a approximation. I don't know.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Mr. Boonster, that should do it for folks out there. Is that right? Yes, sir. Okay. I'm looking at the Zoom board and I see no other hands raised, right, Alice? Mr. Smith, thank you. And usually I say step down, but you can sign out.
Thanks. I'll step down.
And we'll take a recess, gentlemen, till 20 of. All right, back on the record. Mr. Berry.
Judge, the applicant has no further witnesses to present, and I believe that completes the applicant's certainly direct examination of witnesses in terms of
All
this
right,
process.
very good. Thank you. All right, turning to other parties that may present witnesses. First off is the Honorable Lee Duffy, Zoning and Planning Officer, Lee County. You have a witness you want to call, Ms. Duffy?
Yes, Your
Okay.
Honor. Mr. Kuhn?
Goon, you want to raise your right hand for me, please? There's the Slavin rule. Once past midnight, you have to be sworn in again, despite the same proceeding. Do you solemnly swear and or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Ask away.
Thank you, Mr. Kuhn. As the person in charge of this proposed project on behalf of South Dixon Solar LLC, would it be bound by all representation and promises in its application or made under oath during the hearing process by any of its employees or agents?
Didn't fully understand the question. Could you repeat that one more time?
Would South Dixon Solar LLC be bound by all representation and promises in its application or made under oath during the hearing process by any of its employees or agents?
Yes.
If the facility becomes operational, will South Dixon Solar LLC be using cameras as a security supplement?
Video cameras are commonly used on our solar facilities. So the design has not been done yet for the security of this facility, but I would assume yes.
Okay, and if so, then will you promise that these cameras will always be pointed away from any nearby residents?
Yes.
And I do believe that would be all for.
All right, very good. Questions of this witness, Mr. Boonstra? Zoning board members, Mr. Forster? Mr. Burrow? Mr. Bothy? Mr. Hughes?
No additional questions.
Mr. Myers? Mr. Berry?
No.
Okay, interested parties. Questions based on Ms. Duffy's questions. I think I see Ms. Lawson's hand raised. Is that right? I can't tell if it's an arrow or a hand raise. Okay. Ms. Lawson, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, questions just based on Ms. Duffy's questions of Mr.
No.
Kuhn.
No, I
I'm sorry.
misunderstood that. Sorry.
Okay. Any other hands raised? Okay. In the back room, whoop, did I miss one? Oh, I sure did. Mr. Luz?
Yes, hopefully I didn't hear all of Ms. Duffy's questions. I apologize. Mr. Kuhn, will you adjust your setbacks of your fence further from non-participating residents on this site?
I'm just going to object if appropriate, Your Honor, because I think that goes beyond the scope. Of
It
Ms.
does,
Duffy's-
but I'll let him ask the question.
We offered in our letters and other outreach to neighboring landowners to have conversations, and that offer still stands. So we would be happy to talk to any neighboring landowner about the setbacks and the vegetative screening around their home.
Okay.
And consider making changes.
Okay, thank you. And I have one more question. Will you change your fence that you're looking to put around the perimeter of this site to a woven wire fence with barbed wire straight, if it has to be on the top of it?
Yes, that is something that we would consider doing as long as it's commercially viable and meets the National Electric Code requirements for fencing around a solar facility.
Thank you. I've got no further questions.
Thank you. I got a see any more hands. How about in the back room, Mr. Boonstra? State's attorney is the gatekeeper of the rear room.
No questions, Your Honor.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Kuhn. You may be at ease, and thank you, Ms. Duffy. Now, do you wish to testify yourself?
I do.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, Ms. Duffy, would you please, for the record, state your name
D. Duffy,
and your occupation?
zoning administrator for Lee County.
All right, and I promised I'd help you. So as the zoning and planning administrator for Lee County, is a part of your duties to receive and maintain documents sent to you for any particular zoning board matter.
Yes,
Have you received any correspondence or documents regarding this particular hearing?
yes, I have.
Okay, and what are they? And you don't have to read them, just would you, if you give the folks a general idea of what you're talking about?
I have the Lee County Soil and Water Conservation District Natural Resource Report.
Okay, before you go too far, and we'll try and remember where we left off, but I understand that report is lengthy. In round numbers, how many pages is it?
1,400 pages.
And so you did not make copies of that to hand out, is that correct?
Correct.
But that is available to anyone who wants to come to your office to view it. Would that be correct?
Yes, and it will be on our website also.
Oh, it'd also be on the website. Actually, they can't come to your office because this courthouse, the old courthouse, will be closed for a while. So
Correct.
it will be on the website. All right, thank you. Next, what kind of documents do you have?
I also have several letters of objection and support.
All right, and they are labeled ZO number 2 through number 16. Is that correct?
I believe 15.
15. Thank you. Sorry. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And will those be available on your website? Were you going to scan them in?
Yes.
Okay. And the board has been passed out copies of those exhibits, and petitioner has a copy. And anything to add based other than the questions I asked you?
No.
All right. Based on that testimony, questions of Ms. Duffy, Mr. Boonstra. Now's your chance.
Got her under oath now.
Yeah.
I've got some questions. No, thank you.
Board members, Mr. Forster,
No question.
Mr. Burrow, Mr. Bothy, Mr. Meyer,
No question.
Mr. Hughes.
No questions.
Okay, interested, Mr. Berry.
No questions.
Interested parties, questions of Ms. Duffy. I think I see a hand raised. Jamie Lawson, I assume.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, question of Ms. Duffy.
My only question would be to Ms. Duffy is, how many of those letters received, how many are pro and how many are against?
I'm not sure
I'm not sure.
that she should characterize what's for and against. I haven't read the letters either, but there may be.
Okay, I thought she had said in her statement that there was opposition and, I can't remember the exact numbers. I thought she had clarified the two differences. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Any other hands raised? Okay, very good. You may step down. Get off easy. Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry. The back room. I forgot the back room.
No questions back.
Okay, you did get off easy. You may step down.
Thank
Well, the next stage is for interested parties to testify. This is, I'm gonna give the same speech I usually give. If those of you have heard it before, please forgive me, but I would like you to pay attention as well. This is the time for interested parties to be put under oath and to give their own testimony as to facts. This is not the time for you to tell the board how you feel, what you think, what they ought to do. that's the time, that time will come in closing comments, public comments, closing statements, call it what you will. This is the time to allege facts. You might want to think about if you're going to make a closing comment or a public comment that will include facts, if you want to testify about them now, because if you start doing that during the closing comments, you won't be under oath and you won't be subject to cross-examination, the two biggest factors in truth finding during hearing process. And I would stop you, hopefully politely, but I would stop you from doing that in any public comments or closing statements. So now is the time if you want to allege facts. Facts are things like, my son brought home a Blandings turtle and he found it at a branch of 3 Mile Creek. I disagree that the sun shines as much as Mr. So-and-so said it does. I kept track last year and the sun shone only 157 days. Those are facts. So with that sort of admonition, where am I going to start? I think I'll start in the back room. Folks in the back jury deliberation room, is there anyone back there who wants to be put under oath, testify, be subject to cross-examination questions? Assuming you heard me.
I'm told that they have no comments to give at this point, just comments at the end.
As long as they understand it's that the end is for comments based on the evidence. You can't add things factually at the end because you're not under oath and you're not subject to cross-examination.
Correct, they do not want to
Okay,
testify.
very good. Well, we'll turn to the Zoomers. Anyone want to testify at this point? I think there's a hand. Jennifer Lawson. Jennifer, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, and you want to be put under oath and testify to some facts, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, are you on video or are you just on audio conferencing?
I believe I'm only on audio.
Okay. I want to raise your right hand, even though I can't see you. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Oh, there you are. There's your face. I didn't hear you say, I'll start again. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Sir.
Was that a yes?
Yes.
Okay, very good. I'll help you get started. State your name. Whoops. I think we lost her. Just a minute, Jennifer. There you are. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, you're moving in and out. You may not have enough. You may not have enough broadband to bring us your video. You want to stay just on the audio? That's fine with me.
Yep. Give me a second. There.
Okay. State your name, please.
Jennifer Lawson.
And I avoid asking people for their address, but tell us more particularly now where you live in relation to this project.
We live on the north central side of the project off of the Levan Road.
And how far away would you estimate you are from the nearest boundary to the project?
500 feet.
Okay. All right. And with whom do you, who's in the household with you?
My husband, James Lawson Jr., my son, Tanner Lawson, and my daughter, Cody Lawson.
Okay. I can't guess what you want to testify about, so you go ahead and stick to facts and
I just want to, hopefully I'm doing this appropriately. In regards to the Illinois state endangered species, the spiny back and smooth shell, soft shell turtles, I am stating fact that we have seen and in fact captured via fishing the 3 Mile Branch Creek, the smooth shell turtle in 3 Mile Branch, which is an endangered species in Illinois.
Okay. Anything else?
No, sir.
Okay. Questions of Ms. Lawson, and we'll stick to that, the turtle business. Mr. Berry?
No, thank you.
Ms. Duffy? While we find her, Mr. Boonstra, questions? Mr. Boonstra, questions? Okay. How about zoning members? Mr. Chairman? Mr. Burrow?
Yes, Ms. Lawson, the turtle that you were mentioning, have you found that just one time or more than once, and how long ago did you see that?
It has been on at least 3 occasions. It was the most recent occasion was a year and a half ago in the summer.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Mr. Bothy? Mr. Hughes?
No questions.
Meyer?
No questions.
Ms. Duffy? She's elusive. Okay. Any questions, Ms. D. Duffy? Okay. Other interested parties, questions of Ms. Lawson? Hands raised on the Jim, I'll check though. Jim, do you have any questions of Ms. Lawson?
I have no questions for Ms. Lawson.
Okay. In the back room? Questions for Ms. Lawson?
No questions.
Okay, great. Thank you, Ms. I think I've covered everybody. Mr. Berry?
No, thanks.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Lawson.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And I see somebody else's hand raised, someone named Jim. Do you want to testify, Jim, if you can hear me?
Yes, and I'm trying to get the video started. There we go.
Okay. Jim, you want to raise your right hand, please? Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about, or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay. Start with your name, please.
James Sheeline.
Would you spell your last name for my
SCIELEIN.
You went too fast.
Oh, I'm sorry. SCHIELEIN.
Very good. And would you tell us, please, where you reside in relation to this proposed development?
My home is within the project, and I'm also a participating landowner.
All right. All right. If you would please stick to facts and tell us any facts you want to relate.
Sure, and I'm going off of the letter that I submitted in support of the petition. Just want to be able to go through this as submitted testimony or at the end, so I don't get admonished by the presiding judge. One of the facts that as I wrote this is that Duke Energy is a top utility firm listed on the New York Stock Exchange with revenues of over $25 billion in 2019.
Excuse me, just a minute. Mr. Reporter, are you able to catch this? You're real hard to hear, sir. If you can get a little closer to your computer speaker and maybe go a little slower.
Certainly.
That's better.
My fact is that Duke Energy is a top utility firm listed on the New York Stock Exchange with revenues of over $25 billion in 2019.
All right. Questions of this witness, Mr. Berry?
No questions.
Mr. Boonstra?
No questions.
Ms. Duffy? Mr. Forster?
No questions.
Burrow. Mr. Bothy, Mr. Hughes,
No questions.
Mr. Meyer.
No questions.
Other interested parties, we'll start with on the board, hands raised. Jamie, questions of
Yes.
gentlemen?
Hi, Jim. Jamie Lawson.
Yes, JV.
Yeah, just a quick, with your statement, with that much money, why do you feel they need more? Or why do they need why would they need to, I guess, pollute, my opinion, pollute this area with solar farms with that much money? Can't they go elsewhere?
Well, his opinion is not what he stated. He just stated they have they're listed on the stock exchange, some net worth.
Okay.
Any other questions about that fact?
No, that's all I have.
Okay. Ms. Lawson, questions? Oh, that's an arrow. I'm sorry. Mr. Laws, questions?
Hello, Mr. Sheeline. Has Duke Energy been involved in any lawsuits regarding solar arrays?
That is not part of the fact that I'm presenting.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, in the back room, did I already ask that? Mr. Boonstrook in the back room, any questions?
No questions.
Okay, great. And I see, and you may step down, Mr. Sheeline. Thank you. Actually, I say step down. You can sign out. We're looking at you right now.
He said he wasn't finished.
Oh. All right, Mr. Sheeline, you said you weren't finished. There was this long pause, and you said thank you. And
For some reason, my iPad muted me. No, I have several things I want to make sure that I'm covered so that when I read my statement into the record, that I don't get admonished.
okay, go ahead. And we'll have to go around the horn again, but fair enough. Get a technical glitch.
So can I go through the things and then I'll tell you when I'm done and then we can go over go around.
As long as you stick to facts, that's great.
Correct. Duke is over a century-year-old company. It is my understanding that they have a long-term view of the utility business in that regard. They have agreed to sign an AMA contract with the Department of Agriculture. They have also agreed to restoration provisions in our individual lease agreements. As part of, just for clarification, Judge Slavin, is the statement of fact also in regards to myself? Because I make statements in regards to the years I've lived in the community and that kind of thing?
No, that's all right.
Okay. Also, there's several things that I state in regard to facts about the state of agriculture and price of commodities and that kind of thing. Is that necessary to be entered into the record?
I would think so.
Okay. One of the facts that in looking at the record of my career in agriculture, which is 40 years, I sold corn in 1980 for $3.80 a bushel or thereabouts. Corrected for inflation, that $3.80 per bushel is equivalent to $12 a bushel today. Also, in January, I'll be delivering on a corn contract for the value of $3.70 per bushel. Is also a fact that in the course of multiple farm bills over the course of the last 40 years, set-asides have been used as methodology to stabilize commodity prices and also to reduce production of several types of commodities. Very much appreciate your patience here. Also that this type of development, and I state this as a fact, as a former member of the Dixon School Board, also as former supervisor and trustee of South Dixon Township, and also a current Lee County board member, that the type of development and tax revenue that this type of project brings to the taxing bodies is kind of what you call a clean revenue stream. The revenue brought in does not include the necessity of extending government services, such as, and I use the example of subdivisions where when you build a house or you build an industry within an area, necessary infrastructure and services, government services, need to be extended to those things. In this case, the solar array is built, it produces property taxes, but yet has minimal impact upon government services. So that creates a greater impact of the revenues generated by the facility. Also, I do refer to a report given by the executive director of Kevin Marks of the Lee County Industrial Development Association, in which, and I'm paraphrasing his report, that Lee County being welcoming to renewable energy projects is a net benefit to attracting businesses to our county, and specifically to his work in attracting businesses to the Dixon Industrial Park. That report can be accessed through, and I think that was D, if you remind me, I think he gave that report at the September meeting. I'd also state as fact, wildlife habitat for small mammals, birds, and other wildlife will be greatly enhanced. This system will encourage a rich ecosystem for birds, small mammals, butterflies, and other pollinators underneath the panel systems. I'd also like to state as fact that there is no net loss of prime farm ground with this array. The farmland underlying the array is intact, and by the very nature of the project has the ability to be restored and to be back in production in a short period of time. I think that's all I have.
All right. Questions, we'll start again. So, Mr. Boonstra?
No questions, Judge.
Ms. Duffy. Mr. Berry.
No questions.
Mr. Forster.
No questions.
Mr. Burrow.
No question.
Mr. Bothy. Mr. Hughes.
No questions.
Myers.
No questions.
Ms. Duffy, last chance. All right. Let's start in the back room. Questions of this witness, anyone? And this is Marilyn Shippert.
I'm Angie Shippert.
Angie, I'm sorry. I thought, what, looking at your mom on the screen or your mother-in-law, wouldn't it be? No,
Yeah,
cousin?
not that either, but.
Cousin, okay, whatever.
Is
Questions of,
my relative.
cousin, questions of this witness.
Yes. You said, quote, wildlife will be greatly enhanced. What evidence or peer-reviewed research gives you this impression?
Angie, I have not had any peer-reviewed research that I've had access to. This is over the experience that I've had in both being an agriculturalist, operating both pasture systems for livestock operations and the like. It's almost common sense to understand that compared to a row crop situation, having a prairie situation is going to be very beneficial and enhancing to small mammals, skunks, possums, coons, all those things, including fowl. Now, do I have evidence of that? No, I don't. That's just simply been my experience.
So when we're speaking under oath, just to clarify, this is your opinion rather than a fact.
It's 40 years of being an agriculturalist.
Is it a fact that wildlife will be greatly enhanced with this project?
In my 40 years of experience as an agriculturalist, my answer is yes.
Okay. When you referred to short period of time when referring to farm ground, what is your definition of short in this case?
Well, since human beings have been in the agricultural business for thousands upon thousands of years, there's depends on the scale that you want to look at. The scale of this, the time period of this project, 35 years, potentially another 35 years, relatively speaking, is a short period of time.
Would you consider 70 years the same as a lifetime?
No.
Do you know the approximate lifespan of an American male?
That's about 76 years of age.
But you think 70 years and 76 years are not comparable?
Angie, I don't know. I don't.
Okay. So you said no net loss of prime farm ground. Do you know the approximate bushels in either corn or soybeans on this amount of acreage that could be lost over 70 years?
Well, I haven't done the math calculation, but that would be easily done. I could do that in a few minutes. The fact of the matter is, and I guess this is another, if I'm allowed, Judge, we've recently.
I just want you to answer the question.
Well, this would be part of that question. It'd be relevant. The oversupply.
Well, I don't want you to ask a question. I just want you, I'm sorry, I'm just not being difficult, but I just want you to answer the question.
Right. Okay. So therefore, yes, I could get that answer for you, Angie. I just need a moment to do the calculation.
When you say no net loss of prime farm ground, this is on what I would understand as grade A farm ground. So when you say no net loss of prime farm ground, is that your opinion?
Where's the farmland going? It's not going anywhere.
Will farmers be able to farm this ground during the time frame that,
I
can't hear you.
This is prime. A-class ground has specific characteristics. I know my farm would not be considered Class A ground.
Is there any land in the project that is considered Class A?
Oh, sure.
And would farmers be able to farm this land for the 70 years that the panels could potentially be on them?
Yes.
So you're saying they are physically able to farm them while the panel structures exist on the land?
I misunderstood your question. No, while the panels are on the land is being used for a different purpose for a temporary period of time.
And again, could you define temporary?
Temporary means it's not permanent. When I say permanent, if you build a house on a piece of land, there's permanent damage to that land. Like you, or if you put, I can give you the example of when you put concrete and compact soil and change the soil profile of a piece of land used for agricultural purposes, it can take an exceedingly long time for that property to regain its productive potential. Now, it's not forever. Maybe it's not maybe in the strict sense of what we're talking about is permanent. There's always time, eventually heals all wounds, but it's definitely a different time period for other structures that does damage to farm ground as opposed to the temporary type structure we're talking about in this array.
Are you aware of Duke's admission in this hearing that they would move topsoil?
Yes.
And when you reference there'd be no change to soil structure, are you taking that into account?
Yes. If you remember, the part of the testimony was that the soil would be moved in order to facilitate the installation of the panels and then be put back. I do that all the time.
Can you tell me what year Duke Renewable was founded?
No. I'd have to look it up. It's readily available.
No further questions.
Thank you. Anybody else in the back room? And then Mr. Shippert, yes, questions of.
Yes, guess I have a few questions. Will the wildlife that you mentioned earlier have access to the prayer systems that you mentioned?
I guess I should answer a question with a question, Brad, but the animals would live within the grasses that's underneath the panel. There's nothing that prevents there is nothing in the system that would prevent animals from living within the grasses that will be grown underneath the panel.
How will wildlife access through a chain link fence or pass through a chain link fence?
In my experience, again, as being an agriculturalist and handling livestock on various farms and fences, I have never found a woven wire or chain link fence that they can figure out how to get around.
So you're saying they can access through a chain link fence or they can't?
They
Clarify.
try, they can either burrow underneath of it. There's all kinds of ways that Mother Nature always finds a way, Brad.
And how will said wildlife get back out in an easy fashion?
Same ways they got in.
Yeah. Does wildlife have access to growing crops for food and shelter? Currently.
They have access to food. They have access to water. They're also more exposed in a row crop situation. It's commonly known and we've seen this with the rise in coyote populations, decreases in rabbit populations and small animal populations, also predation by red-tailed hawks. The row crop situation is not ideal for small mammals.
You mentioned set-aside programs. How were these set-aside programs funded?
By the federal government.
Are those same set-aside programs available today?
No, they're not. This was a change in the Farm Bill. I believe it was the 1996 Farm Bill, the Freedom to Farm Act, that ended the formal set-aside program as it was designed going back to I think it was 38.
Is the CRP program still available today?
Did you hear that question?
Oh, I answered. Yes. Yes,
Okay.
CRP program is still available.
Is your
Open
farmland more productive now than it was in 1980?
Yes, and that's part of the, in my letter, I mentioned the continual increase of production, trendline yields that have occurred from 1980 to present time.
Would you say that's contributed mostly from improved farming practices, improved, give me a second here. Let's just say improved farming practices.
Yes. Improved farming practices, improved genetics.
Okay, fair enough. That's all the questions I have.
Bill, anybody else in the back room?
No other questions.
Thank you. And any other hands raised, questions of Mr. Luz? Questions?
Hello, Mr. Sheeline. You talked about tax revenue from this site. Can you tell me about the tax abatement this site is going to be requesting or seeking?
No.
Are you familiar with the program that they're looking to apply for?
The only program that I'm have understanding of, and it's been a while since I've seen the specifics, but that is the enterprise zone abatement, and that's a 5-year 20% abatement over 5 years.
Okay. Are you familiar with what rate the solar site is supposed to be assessed at then?
Oh, I had that number from Wendy, and I can't remember it off the top of my head. But that is fixed by statute.
And so they're going to be being assessed at that full rate then for the first 6 years of this project. Is that correct?
Well, if they qualify under the enterprise zone, it would be a declining abatement over the first 5 years of the project.
And what percentage was that decline?
Use the enterprise zone that I'm familiar with. It's a 25% or 20% per year declining abatement.
So
But I don't know that this project's going to be utilizing that.
are you familiar with them referencing that they were going to apply for that?
I remember in their testimony that I heard that, Adam. It could have been Monday night. I wasn't able to be on Monday night.
That's fair. Are you familiar then with wind being assessed at a $314,000 or thereabout per megawatt figure at a state level?
Yeah, I really haven't studied wind, Adam.
Yeah. Are you familiar that solar would be at a $218,000 per megawatt rate?
I thought a little higher than that. I thought it was 243 at a guess, as I remember, but those numbers, I don't have, I'm not at my regular office, so I don't have those in front of me.
Okay. You talked about that report talking about jobs. How many jobs has Lee County seen in our green energy participation that we've had in this county for quite some time?
I have direct knowledge from friends that have had family members work for the wind energy companies. How many that amounts to is total employment over Lee County, I'm not familiar with.
What other jobs have moved into the county from our green energy boom that we have in this county?
I don't know that full list, Adam. I do know that you know, the construction jobs, the temporary positions, in regards to the constructing and also the repowering of the wind farms in Lee County has contributed to the overall employment, at least temporarily, and then the maintenance positions of those jobs have been added. You know, this I can only go by the estimate that Duke Energy Renewables have provided to us, that 5 to 10 permanent positions will be added through the course of this project.
In your conversation about that report, you talked about the green energy attracting other industries to Lee County. Is that correct?
Yeah, that was a report made by the executive director of LCIDA to the Lee County Board, I believe. Again, Dee, correct me if I'm wrong, but that was in September, where he made the statement that renewable energy and would be an attraction to businesses that were looking at different sites for locating facilities at.
And so in the tenure that Lee County has had green energy, what other industries then that have moved to Lee County because of this?
That's that, Adam. I was simply repeating as a fact that was a report made by the executive director of Lee County Industrial Development Association.
What other industries do you anticipate moving in because of this green energy boom in Lee County? As a county leader, what do you anticipate coming to this county?
I would say that I am not an expert in economic development, so I'm not aware of all the possibilities that exist. I can tell you that I talk frequently with people in the field as a course of my responsibilities as a county board member, and they can run the gamut. Whether or not, you know, the report was that the proposed project over on the east side of the county, the initial project that was approved by the board prior to, or it was right after I got on the board, that project was sold to Amazon. Amazon is putting a distribution plant in DeKalb as we speak. Are those two connected? I have no idea.
So you're referencing the jobs that are created from DeKalb County and referencing that would be a benefit to Lee County then?
Well, I'm using that as an example that Amazon had reportedly purchased that 750 acre solar array from Geronimo, and that was reported in the Dixon paper. And that it is also a fact that Amazon is currently building a distribution facility in DeKalb. Whether or not those two are connected, I have no idea. It is not out of the realm of possibility that it's a benefit to Lee County residents to have job opportunities in DeKalb County. I'm sure that we've got people all the time going in from Lee County to DeKalb County for employment opportunities.
Okay. The layout of the SES being in close proximity to the south edge of Dixon, where do you propose the industry go in the future, over the next 70 years?
There is multiple acres that is available south of Plexiglass on the east side of 52. There's property that's been available for a long time on north of Bloody Gulch Road, east of Route 26 that needs to be filled. And south of Bloody Gulch Road. There's also property on the west side of Route 26 that is currently under development by a partnership with the LCIDA and another development group whose name escapes me at the moment. So there's still plenty of expansion opportunities and siting opportunities for industry in the community. Not only that, I would reference a study that was done, if I remember right, from 1968 that evaluated the impact that the tollway would have upon Dixon, and that study had estimated that the population of Lee County would be over 52,000 people, and that we needed a new high school and we needed all kinds of things because of all the people that were going to be here. And the reality and what's come since 1968 is that our population has actually decreased, not increased. The industrial development is an extremely long-term game, as it's been related to me through professionals in the field, and that it's a difficult thing to do. So the reality is that without a huge push from the east, we all know what the east is, that we will have plenty of development property for the foreseeable future, including 70 years.
Okay. In one of your statements, you talked about your lease agreement. What is the duration of that contract?
The contract that I've signed is confidential. I think I have. I don't think I'm free to be specific over the terms of the contract.
Did you share a specific bullet point from the lease of that contract with us here publicly in your statement?
I referenced that it was a generalized statement. It was not specific. I don't think I broke the spirit of, or at least I did not intend to break the spirit of the confidentiality clause within the contract.
So some things are able to be shared from the contract at will, and others are not, depending on.
Well, some things are kind of generally known. It'd be like me saying, I'm going to be compensated under this contract. Well, that's kind of an assumed.
What was this that you made, that was the bullet point that was in the contract that you referenced?
It was a generalized statement of a provision within the contract.
And what was that provision?
Restorative provisions of the contract in regards to restoring the property after the close of the or decommissioning of the solar plant, solar array.
What restoration work do you expect that would have to be done?
Well, my expectation as a landowner and steward of the land and as the principal person responsible for the property that my family owns is that once the life of the project is over, that land will be restored as productive a farmland as it was when we began the project. That's my expectation. We spent.
So, Mr. Feline, do you expect that your yields will be 70 years behind all the rest?
Oh, heavens no.
Okay.
If anything, yeah, my experience.
Folks, we're going on and on. It's now 25 up. Please just answer the question.
Okay. My anticipation is that when the land becomes back in production, it will have many great advantages compared to when before, as it is now.
And how many acres did you have entered into that agreement?
That's proprietary information.
What is the setback on your personal residence from your site to the fence?
Some of that is yet to be determined as the project has allowed participating landowners to set their own setbacks to what they're comfortable with.
On government set aside property you talked about, do any of those government programs require a 6-foot chain link fence with barbed wire around the top of it?
No.
Got no further questions.
Thank you. Covered the back room. I'm looking at the Zoom screen. I see no more hands raised. So you may sign off, Mr. Sheenline.
Thank you.
You've got one or more back there want to testify? I'm sorry.
There was one more that wanted to ask a question of Mr. Sheenline.
Oh, see that. Oh, you mean in the back room? I'm sorry.
Correct.
Mr. Sheenline, can you hear me?
I can. I'm back.
I thought we'd been through the back room, but apparently not.
Do you have the largest acreage in this solar project?
I don't know the answer to that. I hadn't calculated that. Nor I'm not sure if I know.
Do you realize that one can look on the plat book and find out that information?
It really isn't relevant to me who has what.
Do you plan to live in this area if the project is approved?
Part of the testimony that I submitted today to D. Duffy in my supportive letter.
It's not testimony. Just answer the question, please.
Okay. The answer is that I or my family will continue living within the project. There's no plans at this time to move anywhere.
Are you presently living at home today?
Today?
Yes.
Well, I took some time to go to Florida, so I'm speaking from Florida.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Now, Mr. Sheenline, you may sign off. All right, I understand there's one person in the back room that's changed their mind and wants to testify. All right. Angie, you want to raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, whole truth, and anything but the truth?
I do.
Go ahead. No, she hasn't testified. She has a question. I would just put her under oath. All right, go ahead.
Yes.
Well, I'll help you get started. State your name.
Angie Shippert,
And you live where in relation to the project, Angie?
adjacent to within 1.5 miles of the
With whom
project.
do you live in that residence?
My husband and children.
Okay. Go ahead. I don't know what you want, facts you want to.
Lead, according to the EPA. So according to the EPA, in children under 6, exposure to lead can result in behavior and learning problems, lower IQ and hyperactivity, slowed growth, and hearing problems. And in adults, lead exposure is connected with reproductive problems and cardiovascular problems. That is all.
Okay, questions of this witness. Mr. Boonstra? No, thank you. Mr. Berry?
No questions.
Mrs. Duffy? Mr. Forster?
Question.
Burrow?
No questions.
Bothy? Mr. Meyer?
No questions.
Hughes?
Yes, Ms. Shippert, what is the context that those parameters or those I'm drawing a blank on the word. What are the parameters of those negative effects? Does it include consumption? Does it include direct contact over a period of time? What's the reference point on those negative effects?
Exposure. I don't know all the forms of exposure.
Okay, and do you know how close you need to be for that exposure?
No.
And do you think that exposure would be something in excess of 25 feet?
I don't know.
And are you aware that it was testified that the lead, the trace amounts of lead in these panels would be encapsulated?
Yes.
No further questions.
I see one other hand raised. Thank Ms. Lawson. Questions of Ms. Shippert?
Yeah, I appreciate, first of all, I appreciate that information in regards to lead. I was just wondering if you happen to have any information in regards to the crystalline silica.
That's not something that I.
Just answer the question, yes or no.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
No, that was all.
Okay, thank you. All right, I think that concludes our business for tonight, and I will close the stage. Oh, thanks, Alice. Back room, any questions of Angie Shippert?
No questions.
Okay, thank you. Angie, you may step down, walk back, whatever we call it in this
Thank you.
format. Thank you all. That concludes the evidence taking stage for everyone. So I will close the hearing as far as evidence goes. And we will pick up again tomorrow night, 6 o'clock here in the second floor of the, or third floor of the old Lee County Courthouse, and begin the closing arguments public comment stage. See you all then.